Alright, this is discipline 1, shot number 3, so trick fancy, shot number 3. Again, just like the first two shots, these first two balls I'm going to set up on the spot exactly the same way. One ball's on the spot, two ball. Put my Q-tip under the cushion just before it gets to the corner pocket. I'm going to slide my Q-stick into the one ball just so it touches it. You don't want to knock it out of position. Once it's there, put the two ball against your Q-stick and just slide it right up against the one ball. Once that's touching, you can roll your Q-stick away, give them a nice little tap. If you've done quite a bit of practicing on those first two shots, that part of the shot should be tapped in very well by the time you get to this point. I move over to this side pocket, and I'm going to put my Q-stick across the table on the center line of the table. And Q-tip's in the center of the side pocket. I'm going to keep my butt up in the air on top of the pocket just for kicks, but the cue ball has to be no more than one ball width from the cut of the side pocket. So I'm going to use the 9 ball, and its back edge is going to be even with the cut of the pocket. I like to take advantage of that full ball width. And then I'm going to bring the cue ball and freeze it to the 9 ball, and both of these are touching my cue stick. So it's on this half of the table. It's not exactly on the center, just a little bit to this half of the table. So that's where the cue ball is going to go. So the next ball I'm going to set up is the 3 ball for the side pocket. And that's going to be frozen to the cue ball. And you need to adjust a little bit for throw here. So you don't want to aim it directly into the side pocket. You need to aim it a little bit to the left of the pocket from my view here. And even a bit into the point of the side pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Q-stick, just like I did with that, I'm going to put my Q-tip right under the cushion, right next to the point of the side pocket. But I know from experience that that's not enough to guarantee that the 3 ball goes in, and I actually need to move my Q-tip to my left, so farther away from the side pocket. So I'm going to move it 2 shaft widths over, and this is probably about I'd probably say a little less than an inch from the side pocket. I can give you that view in just a little bit. And then the cue ball, I already set up, I haven't touched it at all, and I'm going to slowly bring my cue stick. My Q-tip's going to stay an inch from the side pocket, frozen to the bottom of the cushion. I'm going to slowly bring my cue stick in so it's touching the cue ball. And then again, just like I did with the 1-2 setup, I'm going to bring the 3 ball so it's touching the cue stick, slide it against the cue stick, slowly roll it up until it touches the cue ball. Hold it in place there, roll the cue stick away, and tap it in. So when you get down on it and you look at it, I would say the centers of the ball is aimed here, but if you look at the left edge of the cue ball, 3 ball, it's well into the side cushion, and it may look awkward if you're not used to this, but you know the way the physics work, it'll take the 3 ball into the side pocket. Now the 4 ball is frozen to the cue ball, and it's going into the corner pocket. Now this one's a little trickier to set up, but I'm going to take my cue stick again, and I'm going to push it underneath the rail, and the tip of my cue stick is going to be right at the second diamond here, so right even with the 1 ball. I'm going to hold that in place and swing the butt out just until that touches the cue ball now. And again, you got to be very careful that you don't move the setup of the cue ball and the 3 ball. So again, Q-tip against the bottom of the rail at the second diamond, and then swing the cue stick out until it touches the cue ball. Take the 4 ball, slide it up the shaft of the cue stick until it touches the cue ball. Bring it out just a little bit, and we'll tap that in place. And then be careful when you're moving the cue stick. You don't want to bump the setup, obviously, that you've spent so much time trying to get. But if you do look over the cue ball and the 4 ball, it's actually aligned very well into the long rail. And again, that might look awkward if you're not used to setting up this shot, but that's what you need in order to make it. far as executing the shot, just a center ball hit. It does feel a little weird maybe because you're so close to the rail. You do have to bridge off the rail. Hopefully you're comfortable with that. And sometimes the side pocket will be a little tricky depending on what kind of pockets you have. But I'm going to aim at a little less than half the two balls. When I say less than half, just like that first shot, the right edge of my shaft in this case is going to be even with the left edge of the two ball. And that's what I mean by a little less than half. So that's where I'm aiming. So the cue ball is going to come off kind of the top half of the two ball to make the 2 and the 1. Again, center ball hit. And you actually want to hit it kind of firm because it'll help you get the cue ball through the 3 and the 4. If you try to baby it, because you have extra weight against the cue ball, you could end up wobbling it a little bit. So keep it a little firm, just a center ball hit. And that's all there is to that shot. I know I took a long time explaining that shot, and it's mostly in the setup, because if you don't have the setup right, then it obviously doesn't go. What you have to pay attention for when you are shooting this shot is not only to which balls you're missing, because that's pretty obvious about which balls are going to be left on the table, but where you're missing them, how you're missing the ball. So if you have 3 balls, left on the table, you want to know if they hit this point or somewhere else. Same with the 4 ball or any of the balls really. You got to know where they missed. You shouldn't have a big problem with the 1 and the 2. If you've set up the first 2 shots right, that's the same as this shot. Just make sure you know where the 3 and the 4 are aimed exactly, and how to make adjustments for that. So, I like using this cue stick method because now if I know that if I was 1 inch from the side pocket and the 3 ball is going too far to the left, then I can move the cue stick closer to one way to the right to help adjust for that. And same with the 4 ball. If that was hitting the long rail first and jarring out, then I can move this up farther instead of having the tip at the second diamond, move it up, and that'll shorten my angle so I won't be hitting the long rail. The last thing to really worry about is to make sure you're hitting enough of the 2 ball to make the 2 and the 1. If the 1 ball doesn't have enough speed, then obviously you're hitting the 2 ball too full, and so you're going to need to aim just a little bit more to the left, and it doesn't take much, just a little bit. Likewise, if the 2 ball doesn't get there, then you're aiming too far to the left and aim just a little bit more to the right. Those are the common adjustments to make for this shot. But again, spend a lot of time on the setup. You're going to need to spend a lot of time on the setup to making sure you get it down and you know exactly where the balls are lined up and what they look like on your table. But this is a pretty simple shot that translates to virtually any table in any playing condition, since it's pure setup. So with that, you should have enough in your arsenal to make this shot 90% of the time at least.